All right, for today's video review, we're going to be taking a look at Transformers Generations Thrilling 30 Sandstorm. A very cool figure here. He is a pretty extensive retool of Thrilling 30 Springer, which is also considered to be a very, very good figure, still considered to be like one of the best like modern figures all these years later. And yeah, no, there was some talk recently about how apparently Sandstorm was maybe the first intention for this mold and they just did Springer first. I'd imagine it was probably something like they were kind of designed at the same time because, you know, there are some aspects of this that are very clearly like just left over from the Springer part of it. So I don't know which idea came first, but either way, Springer is the one we actually got first. But yeah, he turns into a big dune buggy mode here. It's a little bit ridiculous looking with like the giant tires in the back, but honestly, I kind of love it. Like, it's a really fun mode because the tires are so large. It rolls really nicely. It's, you know, definitely like a stylized take on Sandstorm. It's not really going for like a G1 style version of the figure, like our, you know, more modern version. But yeah, no, I think it looks pretty cool in this mode. He does have a weapon here, which can store on top. They kind of like, what's kind of interesting is they have this like section here to kind of create the sort of, you know, like armored windows, which is just clearly covers up like the same windows that they had on the Springer mode. Like all this stuff is the same sculpting aside from this back piece, which I guess must be a little bit different because of that this, you know, slot for that tab, but still it just covers up those windows. And what's kind of neat is there's a hole in this section and there's a hole in here that actually line up so that when you plug this in, it plugs into both sections there. And, you know, normally I'm not a huge fan of just plugging weapons on the top, but I feel like in the terms of this mode, it does look kind of cool because it's like sort of becomes like a turret because this does actually have some articulation. It can rotate around and then hinge up and down because the peg itself is on a hinge, which is kind of neat. I still generally prefer the look of it without that, but it is cool that it has that functionality, and it's a nice weapon, all things considered. It's another one of those like, you know, sort of like mechanically built kind of like friction fire missiles rather than just you pushing it yourself. You actually have like a mechanism to do it, so like the actual like, you know, ball joint like clasp is in there, and then you just pull this black piece back to fire out the missile. It doesn't, you know, shoot it entirely like super far, but you know, it's still a neat little workaround to not doing springs anymore. And yeah, pretty cool little weapon there. But yeah, no, I really like this mode. Obviously, it's not very accurate to his G1 toy or cartoon design, but it's still a lot of fun as like a different stylized take. In terms of comparisons in this mode, here he is with Kingdom Sideswipe, so you can see how he scales with an average modern deluxe. And then of course here he is with Thrilling 30 Springer, so you can see just how much is different on these guys. Like, you know, let's see, honestly it's more about what's the same. I think that this panel in the front is the same. These window sections underneath are the same, but the actual cockpit itself is maybe like the clear insert is the same, but the actual sculpted roof section is different. And then there are some panels like, yeah, these panels and the arms are the same, the wheels are the same. I think the arms are actually mostly the same, and then that's more or less it. I mean, there's stuff in robot mode like, you know, the like body section and the waist and things like that, but for the most part, yeah, it was kind of notable at the time because this was really one of the first times that they did one of these like extensive retools. Up until this point, like a lot of the retools were really just like repaints with a new head, but they hadn't really done something that was like a total reshelling like this, which of course was something that they would go on to do a lot in Combiner Wars. But yeah, that's what the two of them look like in this mode. Now, obviously being a Sandstorm figure, he is a triple changer, and rather than turn into a more traditional helicopter like he usually does, he actually turns into like a VTOL jet, which is really, really cool. But yeah, to get onto that, he's got some steps in, you know, that are similar to Springer's, but obviously, you know, with it being so sculpted differently, it is a bit different as well. You want to take this whole orange section, just flip it to the back, take the back wheels and rotate them up and then rotate them around, and these will actually be the VTOL jets, which is pretty cool. And then you just want to unhook the feet here from the arms and then rotate them back, again similar to how it works for Springer, and just lock these sections in together. Make sure that these bits stay tabbed together too, and you do kind of like, you know, like hinge it up like that at the knees. Then you can take the arm sections, just rotate them up to the side so you can take the whole front canopy, and just like Springer, it rotates forward to kind of reshape the front here. And then you can take this whole section, I kind of rotate these up just to get some clearance, and rotate it back so that I actually think you do want to have the feet kind of folded down like this. Does that give it more clearance? Yeah. You want to have it so that these two slots here go onto these two tabs on the back of the legs for this section, and it kind of sits like that. And yeah, you need the feet kind of, rotated into their mid position, and then just have these kind of fold down as like tail fins, which is kind of a neat way to do it. And then for the arms, they're a little bit simpler than they were with Springer. You do still do the whole thing with the compression panels, which is still kind of annoying. And mine, they're like super floppy once you get to this point, which is kind of annoying. I've messed with these a bunch of times to try to get them to work a little bit better so they don't just like flop around. But this is probably the weakest part of both figures, is these compressing panels. But then rather than what we did with Springer, which was like folding it up like that, because you wouldn't quite have the clearance for all of this to sit, you just fold in this and then leave this like attached back here like that, which is not quite as interesting, I think, but it still works. And then you bring these back just like that, and then these panels here will tab into the front bits there, and then you kind of just have the arms just kind of like floating in the back here and straighten them out, and then you can bring these back down, and there we have his VTOL mode. And yeah, that's a really cool transformation and a really cool mode. Obviously, it can't do the arms thing like it did with Springer, because then these would like sit up here and get in the way of the VTOL jets, but it still works as those sitting off to the side. I think it's a little bit silly that he's got like these fins right below the VTOL jets, but it's not really a big deal. And then he does have some landing gear, which can be, again, if you have it compressed in there, it can be a little bit annoying to pull out. And then his knee pads are just the other bits of landing gear there, so you can have it sitting like that, and it looks pretty good. Obviously the rotors, being the wheels, do spin. You can also like click them one like click to the side for whatever reason, just to like readjust these. I'm not entirely sure why that is, but it's cool, I guess. And then if you want to store the gun in this mode, if you actually fold down the handle, there's actually a wheel on here. And then if you fold up the front landing gear, then you can use this section. How does this work again? I think that it just kind of clips over. Should have tried this first, because I don't remember how this works, but it definitely does clip in the front here somewhere. Or do you have it backwards? Huh. How does this work? I remember how it works on Springer. I don't really remember how it works on him. I thought that there was just like a clip in the front here, but I don't really see how that would lock in. There's no way you plug it in like that, right? It must be like it latches onto this. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so it's this bit up here on the top of the gun latches in right underneath where the other landing gear was, and then these bits just kind of rest there. There we go. So then you can give that as the front landing gear, which obviously, pushes him up a little bit, but still it's a neat way to store the weapon. You could, if you want, just like peg it on top as well. Again, it's not quite as elegant. But as like how it works in the other mode, but it still looks okay, I guess. But personally, I just kind of prefer him without the weapon and just like have the sort of vanilla VTOL mode here. And then that's the other thing, is when you actually use the weapon, then it really pushes in the, the landing gear, and it's hard to get back out again. So there's just not a lot of finger space in there. But yeah, no, I really, really like this mode. I think this is kind of where this guy shines the most. But yeah, in terms of comparisons in this mode, here he is again with side swipes. You can see, obviously the scale doesn't even really work there, or like with himself, because, he kind of splits the cockpit down the middle to like reshape it here. But obviously, a VTOL's cockpit would be larger than a car's, not smaller, but whatever. That's what the two of them look like together. And then here he is again with Thrilling 30 Springer, just so you can see how different these modes are as well. Again, it's mostly the same stuff showing, that's like the same bits, but a lot of it is just reoriented in different places. And yeah, that's one thing about him, because he doesn't do the arm thing, is that when these panels get loose, they don't have anything like holding them in place in this mode. Like I think I like just trimmed down the stopper section here so that when I had it up like this, I could just compress it in just a little bit just to kind of like, you know, hold it in place, because before how it was when it was like this was constantly drooping down, which was super annoying, which even if they got loose on Springer was not a problem because these bits actually tabbed in there and held them in place. But yeah, that is one thing about this figure in particular that, you know, doesn't do it quite as well as Springer. But yeah, that's what the two of them look like together. And then, yeah, obviously we can get onto our robot mode transformation. And again, pretty similar to Springer, all things considered. We can just fold away the, actually, you do want to leave the front landing gear out, I think. But you can fold these back up, take this section, untab it from the legs here, take this section, untab it, and you want to bring this whole piece up and click it into place just like that. Then for the legs, again, they're pretty similar to Springer, just without the extra tail fins. You just want to untab them, straighten up this like very slight joint here, just the legs are straight. You want to fold the feet down and fold out the heel. Now, for him, I usually will put this in its middle position because it folds the heel up just slightly more, and he's got extra stuff on the backpack. But I'll leave it like this for now just to show you why I do that. But then we can flip the head out into the bottom of the cockpit there, and then take this and fold it around that so it sits onto the chest. Bring this section up, untab these bits, and then fold them into the side of the chest to lock that in. Just like that. And then we can just open up the side windows there, flip out the hand, and then close that back up. And do that on both sides here. And then basically what you're supposed to do, I think, is you're supposed to have this kind of sitting up like above his shoulder just to kind of give it that like Sandstorm look of having the thing sticking up. But because it's already so different from like a G1 Sandstorm design, I personally prefer to just fold this onto the back and leave it like that, but to each their own. And then, yeah, if you have the feet in the stock configuration, it's, first of all, the heels are a little bit floppy, which was also a problem on Springer. But because he's got all this stuff in the back, he just really does not stand. Springer had like the extra bits back here that you could kind of use as heel support, but if you click these like one back, then I find that it makes the heel just sit a little bit higher up and makes it a little bit easier to get him standing. But honestly, he's still not like super duper stable. Yeah, there we have Sandstorm in his robot mode. Let me just adjust the camera here. Okay, stand, man, come on. But yeah, he looks really good in robot mode. I do like him a lot. He's definitely like, again, not super accurate as like a G1 Sandstorm stand-in, like even as a toy version or a cartoon version, because like for the toy version, I mean, he has like a head sculpt that has like the open, you know, mouth without the faceplate or anything, which is not accurate to the original toy, and he doesn't really have the proportions of the like cartoon character of Sandstorm, so he does kind of just like feel like a, you know, just like a complete redesign of the character. But that being said, he does look super cool. Yeah, in terms of articulation, obviously, he's pretty similar to Springer. His head is on a ball joint here, can rotate around and kind of wiggle back and forth a little bit. The shoulders here are on, they're technically like on a ball joint in there, I think, so that you can kind of rotate them around like that and then also rotate them out to the side. And he's got a bicep swivel. He's got a nice clicky elbow that gets about 90 degrees. A wrist swivel, and they can also bend in a little bit for transformation. He does have a waist joint. Obviously, it kind of bumps into some of the backpack stuff here, but it is there. Hips can go forward and back and out to the side. Thigh swivel, nice clicky knee joints, which is still such a satisfying joint to mess with. And then the feet are just sculpted in that slight A stance, and then you can obviously tilt them forward and back a little bit. Yeah, the heels are still loose, and they're still not quite big enough. For him, it's even more of an issue, so I tend to have like his knees kind of like clicked one more click in when he's just in his like resting standing position. Otherwise, like his center of balance is just like all wrong with these bits. Like you could rotate these around to like help a little bit, but then they kind of like bump into the arms there. So I don't know. I generally leave him back like this and just, you know, deal with that. He's a little bit less stable than Springer, but still looks good, all things considered. Obviously, we can give him his weapon here, which he can hold in his hand, and that looks pretty cool. And you can also just store it on the back here using this port if you want, and that works all things considered. He doesn't come with any extra weapon like Springer did. So it's just that gun, but yeah, no, looks pretty good. He's got decent functioning light piping there. I don't know if you can really see it on camera. Yeah, there we go. But yeah, in terms of comparisons in this mode, here he is again with side swipe, so you can see what he looks like with an average size deluxe there. And then here he is again with Thrilling 30 Springer, just so you can see how the two of them look together. And yeah, again, you know, the other parts that are changed, like I think everything from like here down on the arm is the same, like really everything other than like this bit that like holds his like sliding bits, and then like the bumper is the same on his arms. Like the main body section aside from the chest is the same, the hips are the same, the waist piece is the same, the feet are the same, the lower legs otherwise are not. And then obviously all the backpack and stuff is different. But yeah, you can see like Springer A just has a lot less junk on the back, but then also has these separate bits that you can use as extra heel support. So he's quite stable, whereas Sandstorm really is not, and you kind of have to mess with him to get that working. But still, it's a pretty fun figure. However, that being said, I am excited for the new Sandstorm figure that's coming out. I did skip the original release of it where he had the toy head, just because like I really wanted a version of Sandstorm that was the cartoon character, and I didn't want to buy the figure and then just like have a better version of it show up later that I would want to buy again, especially because it's a leader class figure. And now thankfully they have done the like through the space bridge tease that they are going to have a version of that mold with like the G1 cartoon head rather than the toy head in like a 2-pack or something like that. So I'm super excited for that, because by all looks of it, that mold is pretty good. I just wanted to wait for the version that I would have preferred. So this guy's still been just like the stand-in for Sandstorm on my shelf, and like, you know, he is a really good figure, but he just doesn't really look like the character that I want him to look like, unfortunately. He's an interesting like redesign of it and a very cool toy, but he's just not what I would want out of like a definitive G1 Sandstorm design. And then in terms of him and Springer, like I do like Springer better. He's a lot less of a pain in robot mode. But you know, I think that like the alt modes on this guy are both really, really cool. Like I love the huge stupid wheels on the Dune buggy mold. I think the VTOL mode is really cool. But yeah, so you know, they're pretty comparable. It's just, I just think he's a little bit weaker like as a robot mode, especially just in terms of like the weight distribution alone. But yeah, otherwise he's a pretty fun toy, and I definitely, you know, he's definitely a fun figure to have in your collection, even if he's not like the best looking like Sandstorm figure, but he's still pretty cool. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is to it. If you enjoy my videos, make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel. I do reviews every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday, at least for the rest of the month, and then I'm going to be dropping down to just Tuesday and Thursday reviews. But yeah, without further ado, here we have Transformers Generations Thrilling 30 Sandstorm.